Hello and welcome to Rockies Recap. This is Rockies Now. My name is Steven. Right there is our co-host Tom. Tom, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Had a little bit of rain here in Chicago, but altogether good. And Bobby Witt Jr. hit a grand slam to cap off a comeback against the White Sox. So my spirits there are still down. But it's a trade
Mhm.
deadline season. A lot
Yeah.
of transactions have been made, and it's going to continue into the late hours of tomorrow afternoon. Late hours tonight and tomorrow afternoon. So we'll see what happens between now and 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Yeah. Trying to hope that my house doesn't catch fire here in
Oh
Loveland,
my god.
Colorado,
Oh my
because for
god.
those who have seen in the news, whether it's USA Today, we have a pretty nasty wildfire in basically my backyard. And that's why on my Twitter, I posted that Elmo GIF of him just doing. I think that somebody did a custom GIF. I sometimes I call it GIF. I don't know why, but GIF of Dinger, and they just replaced Dinger with Elmo, and they just did that. I was thinking about doing that, but that's the vibes right now with the wildfire. But also, like you said, the trade deadline it's here. We're less than 24 hours away from that deadline, man, and it's gonna be crazy over the next I don't know, over the next 12 to, 20 hours because teams are going to be making a lot of moves. The Rockies, Tom, they've already made a couple moves, and we can quickly talk about that before we get into the series recap. It's going to be a fairly quick one because, as you can see on the graphic, the Rockies didn't have a great series in San Francisco, which they haven't had a good one in a very long time. But the Rockies, their first move was Nick Mears the other day, sent him to the Milwaukee Brewers for um, two right-handed pitchers. Excuse me, I think it was. I want to say it was two right-handed pitchers. Let me double check here. Yes, so two right-handed pitchers from the Brewers. Brandon Blalock, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Then Eugenio Herrera from the Brewers in exchange for Nick Mears. Nick Mears wasn't on my bingo card to get off the team, and so it was definitely a move, and it wasn't necessarily a bad move. I think the Rockies, were looking at getting pitching, and they got 2-1. And so, and both pitchers have had good numbers with the Brewers. I mean, I believe they're both on the top 30 prospect list. I know Bradley is. So, I think he was number 17 on their list, and the other guy, Herrera, he had some promise in the low minor leagues for Milwaukee, and he looked good. So yeah, it was kind of surprising, Tom, that the Rockies kind of didn't go, trade a position player yet. Of course, that could still happen over the next several hours, but they trade Nick Mears first, which is kind of surprising because I think it caught a lot of us off guard here.
The thing that caught me off guard the most is the fact that actually not off guard. It's just was a signal for the Pirates. They're going to try and make a run here. They did make two. It was another acquisition, but we'll see. I mean, because you and I talked about our pre-show meeting. You never say never when it comes to who can go where. Maybe they have a old reunion with our good friend Elias Diaz.
Yeah.
Goes back to Pittsburgh because they could use it back. Because let's say former I can tell you the decline of Yasmani Grandal in Chicago was real, and he is basically now just a veteran presence for them. He is not the offensive force he once was. So, want to add some pop in Elias Diaz? He used to wear the Pirate uniform.
Hmm.
So, that'd be a nice one to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some other interesting trades, such as the Dodgers. We're going to be seeing even more firepower coming out of that bullpen for them. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But to your point about Rockies, there's going to be some more trades, particularly on the position player side. And who
Mhm.
knows? I mean, we talked about Quantrill. He's still an option, even though he has one more year left of team control.
Yeah, and we, at least, we kind of quickly talked about before we started that maybe we could see, both Diaz and Quantrill getting moved to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh they could go out and get another pitcher. I mean, the Pirates they're kind of making that move, like, hey, we're going to try to get that last wild card spot, get one of those three places because it looks like the Cardinals and the Brewers are going to fight out for that top division spot for the rest of the year. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. But yeah, I mean, again, Nick Mears was a little bit shocking, but not too shocking. I mean, Nick Mears has been one of the best relievers for the Rockies this year, has really helped them in big situations, but also, um, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but Nick Mears had a much better ERA at Coors Field than he did on the road, which is kind of odd. And I think was it Mike Petriello on X was like, what the heck, man? Like this is weird. You don't really see that from a Rockies pitcher, but you do look at the graphs and the numbers for Nick Mears, and he's has nasty stuff. But there have been times in time we've seen several times in Nick Mears's time with the Rockies where he's very inconsistent. He loses the strike zone, and we saw that a little bit last year, and we saw him a couple times get demoted to AAA because of his command. And so, Nick Mears does have a little bit of command issues, but still he has nasty stuff. We saw that this year. So I'm for the trade. I think a lot of us were for the trade. It just was like we never had that on our bingo card that he was going to get moved first. Then the next trade, which happened about an hour or two ago, Jalen Beeks, left-handed pitcher who we got off waivers from Tampa Bay in the offseason, gets traded to Pittsburgh for left-handed pitcher. Let me pull that up here. Um, Give me 1 second. Left-handed pitcher Luis Peralta, and if you haven't checked his numbers on Fangraphs or even on MLB.com, go check them out. I mean, they're solid. And yeah, he's only in Double A. I think he's 23 years of age, so he's a little bit on the older side for somebody to be in Double A, but still a 4-0 record in 26 games, 0.91 ERA, 39 and two-thirds innings, 64 strikeouts, and a 0.98 whip. That's pretty darn good. He's 5'11", 170, so he's a little bit on the lighter side, but a lot of people say that he has really nasty stuff. He has dropout pitches that just, once it gets to the plate, he just freezes the batter. A lot of people are saying this is a really good trade for the Rockies, and I agree. I mean, this is what the Rockies need to do: get a bunch of these pitchers. However, some of them could be potential Rule 5 draft selections. So you don't really hope that the Rockies lose any of these guys, in the Rule 5 draft. So that's why the Rockies are going to have to make some moves tomorrow, and of course going into the offseason to make room for the 40-man roster to have these guys on there. But I think I want to say that the two guys, or at least one of the guys that we got from the Brewers, I think it was um, Bradley, who we got the other day from Milwaukee. I want to say he's already been added to the 40 man. So, yeah, I mean, the Rockies, they made two trades, which is good. I think, I told Tom, I texted Tom that the Rockies, they need to make at least one or two more. They have to. I think if they make one more, and if it's Diaz, I'm fine with that. If they, however, here's the thing. This might. I know some people would like to keep Quantrill. I'd like to keep Quantrill. It'll be fun, but at the same time, though, he's the Rockies' best pitcher. If the Rockies trade Quantrill, they could get a really solid return for him because you look at last year. I mean, look at the return the Rockies got from Beeks this year. This is a guy that the Rockies got off waivers. It's not like the Rockies, you know, signed him or Jalen Beeks had a really solid year. I mean, Jalen Beeks hasn't been great, but he hasn't been horrible. He's been good against left-handed hitters this year, but it's not like Beeks has been amazing. And they were able to get a pretty darn good pitching prospect from Pittsburgh. And I think he was also in the top 30 prospect list for Pittsburgh. And so, Bill Schmidt has been able to get good players out of these trades over the last couple of years, even last year from Atlanta, getting, Victor Vodnik, Tanner Gordon, and a few other guys. And I think they got Connor Van Scoyoc from the Angels for Mike Moustakas. And Mike Moustakas was a bench guy, right? So, if the Rockies get rid of Quantrill and give him to the Pirates or the Guardians or the Brewers could be in the mix, or the Twins, which I mentioned before we started, the Rockies, they could get a really solid haul in return, and the Rockies could definitely use that. And they could get maybe, a pitching prospect or a couple more pitching prospects because one of them has to land. And the Rockies, one of the biggest things, and we'll preach on this probably for the next several years, the key for the Rockies to return to the postseason is, of course, offense, but really the key for them is to have good pitching. Because if you don't have good pitching, like Clint Hurdle and Bud Black have said in recent years, if the Rockies want to make the playoffs, you have to have good pitching. That's the foundation, and that's what happened in 2017, 2018. They had good pitching, and so it's about building that. And so it's great to see Bill Schmidt doing this and he's active. It's not like he's asleep. People were joking around saying that Bill Schmidt was drunk. He's not answering his phone calls, not answering the phone. Bill Schmidt, you iterated, Tom, before we started, a bunch of these GMs all across baseball, they're not going to be probably sleeping very much tonight, and they're going to be answering a bunch of phone calls tomorrow. So it's going to be a fun day. But I would imagine at least one or two more trades. I think potentially maybe we could see even three trades. However, I'm starting to become a little bit more negative on Rodgers getting traded. I don't think. I mean, he could get traded. I think he's definitely in the mix, but I just feel like Rodgers is going to be our second baseman at least till the end of the season, if not going into next year, because Amador is just simply not ready yet. He has shown progress in Double A ever since he's done his rehab and got optioned back to Double A. He's shown progress, but he's it's just like he's still young. You still have a ways to go, and you do not want to rush his development. So maybe the Rockies are like, you know what? As much as we would like to trade Rodgers, let's have Amador just wait a little bit longer, let him play a little bit, let him get playing time in Double A before we trade Rodgers or do anything about it. Maybe the Rockies will get a good haul in the offseason for Brendan. So that's something to watch. But yeah, Quantrill, Gomber even is a possibility, but I really see Quantrill and Diaz in my mind are the front runners to be the next two guys to be traded. So it's going to be something interesting to watch. I don't know, Tom. What do you think?
Well, if there's a market for Ahmed Rosario, then I could say there's also a market, but not as big of a market for Brendan Rodgers. There's still probably possibilities for him.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at, well, there's going to be guys move. I was thinking about anybody who is not part of the long term future. I would move on if you can. When I thought maybe Cal Quantrill was a possibility to carry into next year, but the more I think about it, and given his age and that he has one more year of control, I would capitalize on his value because I don't think you want to risk him not pitching well next year and then you can't trade him.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it'd be interesting to see if Bill Schmidt could acquire somebody who's not a double A guy, maybe somebody who's a triple A guy who's closer to contributing to the majors. And I'm not talking a top 10 guy in triple A, maybe a prospect ranking from 11 to 20. That'd be intriguing to me if you could pull that off. But for Cal Quantrill, there is looking at the guys who have been traded so far, like Kikuchi, Montes, Fetty. Those are not one in a starting rotation. They're not the number one or number two starter. They're more like a possible three, pending what rotation, more like a fourth or fifth starter. There's a demand for those starters, and Quantrill on a good team is a fourth or fifth starter. So it would shock me if he's not moved, especially considering also that he's under team control for next year. And, what do we have now?
We have breaking news. The Atlanta Braves are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder Jorge Soler from the Giants.
Wow.
And
they swept us, and they're letting go of their most powerful bat.
Yeah. There's rumors saying, we talked about it, but I said, like, before we start, I didn't think that they were going to get rid of Snell, and they probably won't. They could, though.
No.
With the sign, though.
It'd be, but, I think, yeah. It would, they probably would, but again, it would be, I think they'd be selling low considering his injury for this year. But then again, we have Scott Boras to blame for that, considering that he told Snell don't sign yet and didn't sign until the season was basically started. But this is interesting. A reunion with Atlanta where he did win the World Series, and he was, if I remember correctly, he was the World Series MVP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Braves are trying to get the band back together to try to get that World Series title, but they're heavily injured. I don't know. They lost today to the Brewers 8-3. So the Braves are a little bit weird. They haven't been playing very good baseball, but maybe they do need some of that power back in the lineup. But Matt Olson, he's not having a good year considering his past years that he's had.
It is kind of funny. He won a World Series with them in 2021, goes to Miami, goes to San Francisco. It's funny. East Coast, West Coast, now back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
But
he's been moving all
I gotta give the Braves credit. You lose Strider before the season started. That's arguably easily your best pitcher. Now you lose your best player in I'm drawing a blank here.
Acuna,
thank you. I haven't seen him play in a while. I forgot his name. You lose your best player in Acuna, and you're still trying to tread water here. Right. You're hanging on, but you're not catching the Phillies. That's for sure.
Goodbye. Yeah. But
especially with old friend Carlos Estevez now joining their bullpen.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, who knows? We could see a couple more trades before we finish the stream tonight. But yeah, talking about Jorge Soler, he had a pretty good series against our Rockies, which kind of sucks. But again, it is what it is. It's the Rockies. I need to. I want to go. Let me recheck that again. But I want to say the Rockies have lost. What was it like 11 or 12 straight in Oracle Park? And it's a ballpark the Rockies have not had any good success in for the last several years. I think the last time we won a game was 2022, I think, in San Francisco, something like that. So San Francisco, they've had our number, especially in that ballpark. So as you can see, game one, not great. 11-4, pitching wasn't great. I mean, Tyler Fitzgerald, man, he's on a run. He's having a heck of a year so far. All these home runs, and he could become arguably, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Doyle because Doyle could become player of the month. But I'm not. I wouldn't be too surprised if Tyler Fitzgerald is up there on that list. But yeah, game one, Doyle. I think one of the highlights in that game, Doyle got a triple. So Doyle is having a very solid year. Again, he could win the month of the National League Player of the Month in the month of July. He's having a nice year, and with the bat, and of course we had that scare on Sunday. And Yeah, so other than that, it was not a great game. I'm trying to think who pitched that. Cal Freeland pitched that game. Freeland wasn't on his game. He did get 8 strikeouts. That was great to see. He had some nasty, nasty stuff. But I want to say Jorge Soler actually hit a home run in that game against Freeland. And again, he has insane power. I feel like whenever Soler ever plays against the Rockies, he always torches us, whether in the away ballpark or at Coors Field. But yeah, it was offensive slaughter of the Rockies. Not really good. And then the doubleheader. So game one of the doubleheader the following day. So game two of the series. The Rockies brought out Ryan Feltner, the star who was 1-10 with a 5.19 ERA coming to that game, and it was another not a good performance, especially offensively. The Rockies pitched quite a bit better, 4-1 game. Feltner looked great. Feltner's been pitching well over the last few starts. The problem is kind of like with Dakota Hudson, they never really got any run support, and that's been the problem this year. And for a lot of people looking outside in, you would expect the Rockies to have a really good offense, especially playing at Coors Field. But some people just don't understand the Coors Field hangover, and it's real. As much as we don't like to talk about it, it's real, and we saw that in this series for sure. Um, and the problem was, especially in game one, well, game two, the Rockies struck out 17 times in game one. Game two of the series, 17 times in one game. That's sloppy. That can't happen. And not to mention, I think the Rockies broke some sort of record for strikeouts. I forget what it was. You'd have to check it out on X. For those who are watching, you'd have to check that out. But it's historically not very good. The Rockies offense this year has been historically not very good, especially in the strikeout category. And it kind of weird because just the other day the Rockies scored 20, put up 20 against Reese McGuire's Red Sox, who's no longer with the Red Sox. Lol, laugh out loud. But yeah, it was completely opposite of what we saw against Boston. But game one of the doubleheader, game two of the series wasn't great. 4-1 score. However, good pitching for the Rockies, just no offense whatsoever. However, the only run came from Michael Toglia, who, again, he has proven to himself to be the first baseman for the Rockies for the foreseeable future. Question mark. We'll see what happens. Maybe Condon. I don't know. Toglia is an interesting guy. We'll still watch, but as of right now, he's our first baseman. Then game two of the doubleheader, game three of the series, Tanner Gordon got the start, and Tanner Gordon looked good. I mean, it's just his third big league start. Yeah, I mean, I think there were some calls that were not called correctly by the home plate umpire. He had a pretty interesting night, just to say the least. But Tanner Gordon, man, he looked good in his third career start against the Giants, who have a pretty decent offense, and we've seen that this year, especially in the series. But yeah, the Rockies didn't score any runs. They got shut out 5-0. I think that was their 12th shutout of the season for the Rockies, which I want to say is close to where the White Sox are at this year in terms of times they've been shut out this year. It's just the offense does not click for Colorado, and it's very, very tiresome as a Rockies fan. It's just like, man, we need to see better at bats from these guys because we know these guys can have really good, power, really good contact numbers, and it's just not clicked. Ryan McMahon has not really done well since the All Star break, and yeah, he did have that home run against the Red Sox in Game 3 of the series, but ever since then, McMahon has not done very well so far to start the second half. So Rockies, they lose that game, so they head into the finale. 3 games lost to the Giants in the series. Game 4, Austin Gomber was on the mound. And, some of us thought that that could be the last start, and it still could be the last start for Austin Gomber in a Rockies uniform. We'll have to wait and see till tomorrow. Gomber going into yesterday's game was 2-6 with a 4.70 ERA, and Gomber was taken out, I believe, in the 4th inning. A lot of us thought he was traded, which he wasn't. I think it was more of an injury precaution. Same thing with Brenton Doyle. A lot of us on Rockies Twitter world were holding our breath, hoping that he wasn't traded. And man, a part of us was like, the Rockies, they're not going to trade Brenton Doyle, right? Right. And of course they didn't. And it was just a precaution because I think, we've seen it a few times this year where players get frustrated. They hit their finger, they hit their hand or arm on something out of frustration and they have a contusion or something like that. So it doesn't appear to be super serious or too serious for Doyle. So he should be back in the lineup hopefully soon. Probably in game 1 or game 2 of the Angel series. He'll be just fine. But the offense was a little bit better in game 4 against, I believe it was a bullpen game for them, for the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, Toglia, he got another home run in the series. I think he had 2 home runs in the series overall. He has 18 home runs, which leads the team. And yeah, I mean, Toglia, man, I think he's as of right now, he's the Rockies' first baseman potentially for the future, unless if anything changes. Um, Tovar, I think he had a nice hustle double. Hunter Goodman, I think, got 2 hits in that game. The pitching staff was, I think, good. And then you talk about the big misplay by Ryan McMahon. I think it got out of his glove or something happened. It was kind of a misplay, sloppy play by the Rockies there, and that kind of cost them a couple runs. So, there's a case where the Rockies could have won game 4, but again, the Giants, they have played extremely well against the Rockies, and the Giants are trying to fight for that playoff spot. And, you have to respect it. I mean, the Giants, they want to get back to the playoffs under their new manager, first year manager, Bob Melvin. And not to mention, I mean, the Giants had really good starters in all of their games, especially, games 1 through 3. I mean, Blake Snell, I believe he pitched, was it game 1 or game 2? Or was it game 4? Yeah, it was just, man, he was lights out. What was it? 15 strikeouts, I think. It was just solid. So, and we'll see if he gets traded. I don't think he will. The Giants are, considering buying and selling, kind of like the Cubs. The Cubs are kind of in the waters there. They got rid of Christopher Morel, but then they, game number 2, excuse me, for Blake Snell. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of these teams. So like the Giants, the Cubs, keep an eye on those 2 teams for tomorrow, or they might be done. I don't know, but yeah, it was overall again a rough series. It was a series that just frustrated the heck out of us Rockies fans. Just like, man, wish we could have played better. But at the same time, though, you're really looking at playing the young kids, and of course, Bud Black, talked about not too long ago, I think right around the close to the All-Star break, how he envisions how he believes that the Rockies are going to be playing a bunch of the younger players, especially right after the deadline. So really, at this point, you're just playing for the future, letting the young kids play. And yeah, it sucks that you get swept in San Francisco because it's kind of embarrassing, especially when you get blown out in like game 1, like 4-11. But all the other games, they were semi pretty competitive, right? And especially game 4. So that was a little bit better, but still, it's just a sweep is not cool. So overall, walk away from it. Start something new. Try to get some wins under your belt in Anaheim as the Rockies play the Angels. And yeah, it just you're just trying to play better. And the Angels, they're kind of in the same position as the Rockies. However, the Rockies, I think, have a better future than the Angels. Angels don't have a farm system whatsoever, and so you kind of feel bad for the Angels fans. With Mike Trout, what are they going to do with him? Is he going to stay in the Angels uniform forever? Are they going to move him? So there are those questions, but it's going to be a nice, interesting series in LA. I think the last time the Rockies were in Anaheim to play the Angels was, I think, in 2021. So it's been a few years. But tomorrow's starters, questionable will be, right now, as of right now, Kyle Quantrill will start game 1 for the Rockies. And Griffith Canning, I believe, will be pitching for Is it Griffin Canning? Let me look. Yeah, Griffin Canning will pitch for the Angels. 3-10 with a 5.04 ERA. So he's not having the greatest solid year. I mean, the Angels, again, they're kind of in the same situation with the Rockies. They're not too far away in terms of record. So the Angels, they're fourth in the AL West. They're not looking too hot either. So it's going to be really a battle of two rebuilding teams. So that'll be interesting to watch. So I guess for me, before we wrap up, and then I'll go to Tom. But I think for me, watch out in the series. Just try to get the offense going a little bit. Kind of get some runs for your pitchers, because if the Rockies can do that, that can go a long way. It really help your pitchers and really helps seal the deal. And Rockies, if they get off to a good start, good chances that you can win the ball game as long as your bullpen holds it down. So, but also too, keep an eye on tomorrow, because tomorrow could really, really dictate of what we could see in the second half in terms of call-ups, not to mention the September 1st call-ups when the rosters expand on September 1st. So a lot happening tomorrow. So I don't know, maybe we'll see somebody start in place of Cal Quantrill, because tomorrow will be a 7:38 p.m. start for the Rockies against the Angels, and that'll be after the deadline. So we'll have to wait and see. So Tom, what are your thoughts before we wrap up tonight on the upcoming Angel series?
Well, somebody is definitely on ready in case Cal Quantrill is a late scratch. It was nice to see Feltner have a quality start. Tanner Gordon was was run shy of a quality start. I got nothing to say about this offense except the glaring stat: in 4 games they struck out 53 times, and including 15 of those were against Blake Snell, as you talked about in game 2. We talked about in game 2. He definitely had his best stuff, considering he is a 2-time Cy Young winner. This is a series I wish I could forget. I know we're not all happy about a 4-game sweep, but let me tell you, would you rather have a 4-game sweep right now? What did you say was 14-game straight loss in Oracle Park?
I think it's 12.
12 would you rather have 12 straight losses in one single ballpark, or would you rather have 15 straight losses right now? Because that's what the White Sox have right now.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather have 12. I'd rather have 12 straight losses in Oracle.
So my fellow Rockies fans, let me tell you, you think your life is bad? Look at my life as a White Sox fan. Come on over, enjoy and see how bad my life is.
Go follow Tom on Twitter.
come. You want to talk about bad teams right now? Let me tell you. We can talk about my team right now, because all I can say, just comments on the trades today. There were some nice trades. All I can say is we're going to definitely see some more firepower coming out of the Dodger bullpen with Michael Kopech now going to the Dodgers. I got to tell you, because I think one of the least talked about pitching coaches in baseball is Mark Pryor with the Dodgers. Actually, I'm probably downplaying that a little bit. Maybe I just don't hear a lot talked about him. I can tell you firsthand, he was a fantastic pitcher here in Chicago for the Cubs.
Yep.
It's just his career got cut short with an arm injury. So his elbow was, I don't recall if he actually had Tommy John surgery. He just had some he had a forearm problem. He had a shoulder problem.
And I believe he was a pitcher during the Steve Bartman incident, right?
He was a starter of that game.
Yeah, he was still pitching. He was still pitching.
He was in the game. And people, one comment I'll say is it's up until in that start, he threw 119 pitches in that game.
Yeah, Dusty Baker was the manager for the Cubs.
And some former major league executive pointed this out. I think it's pretty good. Dusty Baker had the old school mantra: he would throw his starters until their arms fall off.
Yeah, and Pryor was still pitching well going into that moment.
But either way, we can discuss about that later. But anyway, back to the trade. It's gonna be. Yeah, I think I want if you want me to give you a guess, I think Quantrill is going to go. I'll throw a guess out there. I'm going to say Seattle.
So you think he's going to get traded? I think he's going to get traded.
I think he, given the fact that he's pitched well at Coors, we have to look at the splits and we have to pull him up. Yeah. But the fact that he has pitched to a really good season and he is a serviceable 4th, 5th starter in a solid rotation, it wouldn't surprise me. Well, then again, Seattle, I would say they added offense by adding who was it? Rosarena. Thank you. However, I always say if you're going to trade with the Rays, buyer beware, because they have a knack for knowing when to get rid of guys at the right time.
Yeah, in my opinion, the Rays.
Yeah, it's okay.
The Rays.
That's an app. That's an app.
But
Rays is an app. Go
So
ahead,
yeah,
go
the
ahead, sir.
Rays, they've had actually a really good deadline. I would actually argue that they've won the deadline. I mean, they've gotten so many good players. Christopher Morel, I feel like every single guy that they touch is just going to be like kind of like the Dodgers. They just know how to, they know how to fix those guys. They know how to turn those guys into superstars. So the Rays, eh,
Well,
I mean,
remember Andrew Friedman got his start in baseball with the
yeah.
Rays,
hmm
so keep that in
So
mind.
yeah, and then
It,
well, I
it's
will
just
say this though. So I found this very interesting. The Mariners are looking for yeah, like a corner infielder.
mm,
They could have Rogers, they could switch somebody to third base and have Rogers play second. Rogers, I mean, like we
I think
said,
right.
Rogers, I
mm,
don't really see Rogers. And now, like originally, maybe a couple days ago, I was like, oh yeah, Rogers is getting traded, especially with the series. San Francisco was just like bad, but Rogers, he's been hitting around 260, close to 270. Why not? But now it's just like, since Amador is not quite ready, he's probably going to stay because if Amador was like in AAA or if he was red hot like he was early in the year in Double A, then yeah, I would see Rogers getting traded. But now I just don't really see it. I mean, again, we could be wrong. We could see Rogers getting traded tonight or tomorrow. It still could happen. I mean, so maybe some of the teams that were interested in McMahon are like, hey, Rockies, since we can't have McMahon, can we have Brendan Rodgers? And
mm,
Rodgers, I think I want to say maybe in the minor leagues he did play a little bit third base, but he was drafted as a shortstop, but and then he got moved over to second base because of course the Rockies had Trevor Story. But I don't know. Maybe Mariners could be on Rodgers because in the I remember. Well, of course, the Marlins they suck, but I remember a couple years ago. In those who remember, the Marlins were interested in Brendan Rodgers, but somehow that deal never fell through. So I don't know. Maybe the Rockies. Maybe the Rockies could put Aaron Schunk in second base for a while. I don't know. Have him play. I mean, Schunk
I,
hasn't
mm,
done very well since he's been called up. Of course, he's a rookie. I mean, he's going to get his playing time in, and
I think,
he's going to have his struggles. But I don't know. It's going to be something to watch. That's for sure.
well, I equate the Nick Mears trade similar to that of the Pierce Johnson trade,
Mm,
a reliever with potential that got when he joined a different pitching staff. I think I turned around because the Braves have a great pitching staff,
yeah.
pitching coaching staff. Excuse me,
Mm,
it's kind of a double entendre.
mhm.
Um, uh, but if you want me to give you my top three guys, I think Quantrill will get traded. Rogers could get traded. I do see Diaz getting traded. I don't see Charlie getting traded.
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, as much as that it would work and it could happen. I just don't think the Rockies would want to trade another guy that's been a core foundation of their franchise. I mean, he's the last really big three of the team that was in 2017, 2018. And again, I feel like that 1 year deal last year was like, hey, this is going to be your last year type of thing. And not to mention the Rockies, like we mentioned, I think before we went live, is that the Rockies approached Charlie and said, hey, do you want to get traded? Or do you want to, or would you like to come back for 1 year? Or would you like to stay? And Charlie was like, I'll stay for one more year. Charlie could have said, I want to get traded. I want to help the team, and he could have done it. I mean, it could have worked both ways, but Charlie, he wants to
I
stay.
think
And I think, of course he doesn't, he already knows he's not going to be Todd Helton because there's nobody going to be like Todd Helton in a million years. But I think it would be nice to see Charlie retire and
he
maybe
would.
even have his number retired, number 19, because again, it just his walk up song and everybody for so long have, worn their, fake beards of Charlie and resembling Charlie Blackmon, singing his song, walk up song, and, wearing his jersey. It's just that I think Charlie deserves it. I really do. And I know as
Mm,
some people would think that, oh, well, Charlie deserves to get traded to a contender. Well, he doesn't have a whole lot of value. And, yeah, maybe one or two teams would like him, maybe the Braves, but still, Braves, it's just we haven't seen in a while anybody, approach the Rockies for Charlie Blackmon. I think the last year I remember somebody approached Charlie Blackmon, it was like in 2019 or 2020. And I think it was like the Yankees and I think even the Braves were in as well. But I just feel like Charlie, him retiring as a Rocky just feels right. Just in my mind, he's not getting traded, but
well, it's also
like you
considering how
said,
much.
I think there's like two to three players on the Rockies. I think are trade potential, but there's definitely two of them that should get traded tomorrow.
Well, I
Uh,
think also given the amount of money that he's owed for the rest of the season, I don't think anybody's going to take on. I
no,
think it's about
no,
5.5 million. Given what he's
no,
produced, I don't think it's
no.
worth the deal.
Yeah. And so, I mean, maybe, you know, at the end of the year, something happens to where he goes to, but at the same time, it's not going to happen. But, for a lot of, I know Lux is a big, Charlie Blackman fan. I'm not sure if I don't think he's in here in the chat, but you know, for a lot of those Charlie Blackman fans, I don't think you have to worry about him getting traded. However, you do kind of see the scenario where the Rockies could, but again, like you said, Tom, nobody would want to pay 5 million for a guy that's 38 years old and really has honestly, it's kind of sad to see, but he's kind of struggled with injuries as of late. He's had, problems with a sore back, and his body's starting to run down a little bit. I mean, his power is still there. I think he has 5 home runs, 4 or 5 home runs in the year, but it's again, it's his days are over. I feel like he's in his last hurrah of being a big leaguer. I just don't really see him coming back next year, and there's really no point to because again, you got Jordan Beck coming back really anytime now because he's as of right now he's in Albuquerque rehabbing and so far I think he's been good. Of course, you don't want to call him up too early because you do want him get regular playing time, but I think when Beck comes back, he ought to be in the starting right field job. And like you iterated earlier tonight, that Rockies, they need to do something about Bouchard, either optioning him back down to AAA or just letting loose of Bouchard because Bouchard is just, he's not the future.
No, I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't. Sorry, I would agree. It's just that I think he's a 4A player at this point, and you just
Yeah.
with the injuries you have to the guys on your 40-man roster, it's kind of challenging considering you want to play Jordan Beck every day, but the problem is, yes, he's recovering from injury. Is he?
Mm.
So is he playing every day once again?
Yeah, he's playing every day. I
Okay.
think he's getting another. I think he had another start tonight. He's starting in the outfield for Albuquerque. But yeah, it's good to see Beck back, and I think even Lucas Gilbreth, who has been out for a while, a long time with that injury. I think he also had Tommy John. I think he's rehabbing as well, and I think he's close to coming back because Rockies could definitely use a lefty in that bullpen, especially with Beeks out. Because the guy that they got from Pittsburgh, he's probably going to start in Hartford because again, I think he was coming from Altoona. The curved team, AA affiliate of the Pirates. So the Rockies need a lefty in the bullpen, so I wouldn't be surprised if Gilbreth is immediately going to go right into that bullpen. So yeah, it's going to be fun over the next 12 to 20 hours. It's going to be insane. Make sure you guys stay tuned to our
Mhm.
Rockies page because again we could see some crazy stuff happen. The Rockies made I want to say like 4 or 5 trades last year, and it's something that we haven't seen in a while, and we could see anywhere from 2 to 3 trades tomorrow. We'll see. I for sure one more trade, at least one more trade tomorrow. So again, deadline ends, I believe, tomorrow afternoon. So again, stay tuned. Of course, to our pages on Instagram, X, and Threads for all your Rockies content and any Rockies trades that may be coming. But of course, check out MLB.com for any other Major League Baseball trades because I guarantee you, like last few years, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen, last minute trades. I think one of the trades last year, I think the last trade happened within like 5 minutes of the deadline closing. So it will go down to the final minute tomorrow. So again, stay tuned. But yeah, for those who have been watching tonight's Rockies recap, thank you so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think we're getting close to 70 subscribers on YouTube, which is awesome.
Mhm.
And again, if you haven't listened to our podcast, we do a podcast. Of course, during the season this year, we've been kind of sporadic because we do a lot of Rockies recaps, and we kind of do smaller podcasts if that makes sense. But if you haven't listened to our podcast, feel free to do so because we stream exclusively on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So go check us out there. Go check us out on our website. Our website is going to be in our Twitter bio and our Instagram bio, so go check that out. We also have some nice merch. I just got my Rockies Now T-shirt about a month ago, and it's a really nice T-shirt. And so, and actually, I'll be wearing that underneath my Rockies jersey when I go to the Rockies game in August. And so, I'll be doing some coverage at Coors Field when I go to the Rockies game at the Todd Helton bobblehead game. So that's gonna be fun. So yeah, so go buy some Rockies merch. And again, occasionally we'll have some sales on the website, but I don't think we're under a sale right now. But once we do have a sale, I'll let you all know on our social media channels so you guys can get some cheap discounts for our Rockies merch. Once again, thank you guys for watching tonight's Rockies recap. And we'll talk to you all later in the week when we play. Who are we playing? The Angels. There we go. I'm starting to fall asleep. But anyways, folks, have a good night. And as always, go Rockies.